Towson, all I can say. And clearly when the Ravens were on the clock at 16, the Capitals were in a tie game in the third period, then gave up a goal. All of the flurry all happened at the end of regulation for the Caps. It was a long evening at the phone booth if you're a Caps fan. And, Ed Frankovic, we know this script, right? I mean, played well enough to win at various points. Certainly the first minute of the second period will be analyzed right on up until when Game 2 begins on Saturday night, and I'll be down at the phone booth, and I know you will be as well. I'll be in Pittsburgh all next week. Let's roll it out. This was tough, right?
Yeah, it's. I think it's fitting that on the night of the NFL draft, this played out kind of like a football game, where the Capitals were the team that had the ball the whole game and were piling up the yards, and they made the turnovers and they gave up the explosive plays, as our WNST partner Brian Billick likes to call it. If you lose the turnover battle and the explosive play battle, you're going to lose, and that's what happened on Thursday night in Game 1. A couple mistakes, especially against Sidney Crosby on the ice. You just cannot make that. And then, as I blogged on Tuesday night at WNST.net, the Penguins love that long stretch pass from their defensemen to their forwards, and after the Capitals were pretty much throwing the kitchen sink at the Penguins after tying it up, what do? They give up one of those off the boards, and it's an odd man rush, and Nick Bonino, the guy who killed them last year, comes down the slot all alone and scores. It's just, you can't give up those plays against that team. You dominate the game, but you lose because you make some big mistakes, and they put it in the back of the net.
Eddie, let's just start at the beginning, because we talk so much about the Caps. I mean, we sit here and, I don't know how many segments a year we do, 50, 60, 70, sometimes 3 days a week. And, it's the up and the down. It's October, it's November, it's December. Everything here is magnified by 25, literally, on these knockout games when you got to get to 4 before the other team does. We don't talk much about the visiting teams other than in passing, right? Played the Penguins a couple times this year, played them a bunch last year, sort of knew that if you're going to get through April and into May, it's going to go through Pittsburgh, as I'm going to find out for 4 straight nights up in Pittsburgh on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and getting back on Thursday. Sidney Crosby, I don't talk to you much about him. I mean, I think we've evaluated Ovechkin every way we can during the framework of our relationship, and, a dozen years Ovechkin's been banging around the organization here. Sidney Crosby, I know we don't like to talk about him. What makes him special in your mind, Ed?
Well, I think he has that sixth hockey sense. I mean, he is the smartest player on the ice. He's the smartest player in the NHL, much like Wayne Gretzky was when he played. Not the biggest guy, neither was Wayne Gretzky, but Crosby knows where to be on the ice, and I'm not going to take anything away from him physically as well, because he skates as well as anybody. He has one of the best shots in the game, and that guy, he's physically built well, and that's all because of his hard work, the effort he puts in off the ice. Case in point, Tom Wilson lines him up for a huge hit in the third period in Game 1, and it's a clean hit. It's a hard hit. But Crosby, he knew it was coming, and he knows how to take the hit, and he put his body up against the board, so when Wilson hit him, it didn't hurt him at all. And sure enough, Crosby, shook the hit off and was flying right down the ice and then almost got a scoring chance after that. And he's an incredibly smart player, and he's incredibly talented because of all the hard work he put in. He's just a phenomenal player, and if you make a mistake against him, he's going to find a way to bury you. And the Capitals made 2 in 64 seconds to start the second period, and number 87 made them pay.
In the case of Crosby, is he underappreciated for what he is at this point? Because I think around here we get all Ovechkin'd up. And, and I think for any of these guys, for Ovechkin, for Crosby, for Lindros before that, for the Sedin, for any of these golden children, and we're seeing that now with, what's going on in Edmonton, certainly up in Toronto last week, with these special players, and the Orioles have one in Machado, and, the Ravens hope they got one, right? I mean, every team in the first round on Thursday night hope they got one in the NFL draft. In the case of Crosby, there's been such a high bar for him that I think in some ways it's sort of like Tom Brady, maybe in the middle of his career. You sort of take him for granted. Oh, yeah, he's the best player, and then you got to go play him in Game 1 on the road, and he does the things that the best players in hockey do, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you go outside the 90-mile radius here of D.C. and Baltimore, he's a god, right? He's He's the pride of Canada. There is no doubt about it. He's got 2 Stanley Cups. He's got all the gold medals playing for Team Canada. He scored the big goals there. He's won world
He's a
championships.
national hero. Yeah, I mean, right. Exactly. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, he is. He's the man. And you put him and last spring the Capitals did a good job of stopping him, and they did a good job of stopping Malkin. And Malkin played last year with injuries, but it was that third line that got the Capitals. In Game 1, Crosby got 2 goals, and that was the difference. Ovechkin got a goal, and at the end, let's call it timeout. And I'm not sure if that was the play there. I didn't get a chance to ask Coach Trotz about it after the game, but I would have rather seen Shattenkirk and Ovechkin switching their positions there, because Shattenkirk gets the look where Ovi usually shoots from, and he misses the net. And I got to think if number 8's in that position and Shattenkirk's the one passing, that puck goes in. And I'm sure Pittsburgh was pretty happy to see Ovechkin way up at the top of the point being the passer instead of the shooter. So I'm not sure if something happened off that face-off. I'm going to have to go back and watch it again. But that's certainly a spot where you want Ovechkin shooting the puck, and the Capitals coming out of that timeout didn't set that up to get that shot. If there's a criticism of the Capitals in this one, other than the mistakes and not giving up that stretch pass, it was there. You got to get the puck to Ovi when it counts, because we saw what he did late in the second period when it was 2-0, and he buries that one right over Fleury's shoulder. He has the best shot in the league, so you got to find a way to get him the puck when it matters.
Bonino, you talked about these long stretch passes, and look, the Caps got outplayed in the first 15 minutes. Pretty well outplayed. The ice was the wrong way. End of the first period, had a little flurry. They had a chance on a 4-on-4, at the beginning of the third. But in the beginning of the second period, I mean, the whole game was about 62 seconds that started the second period. I mean, that's really where they lost the game, not on the Bonino one.
Yeah, you can't turn the puck over in the neutral zone. I blogged about this at WNST.net on Tuesday. When I did my pre-scout on the Penguins, turnovers, because they live off the odd man rush. They live off those explosive plays. And all 3 of their goals were the result of turnovers or an explosive play on a stretch pass. The Capitals dominated the rest of the game. You just can't. You make a mistake and it's in the back of your net. And Braden Holtby was a little critical of himself. He said he probably should have had the first and third goal, or at least one of them. And Marc-Andre Fleury played outstanding. As I blogged also at WNST.net on Tuesday, that first period the Penguins played in these playoffs, they got outshot 16-3, and Fleury kept them in it. And Fleury is a big reason that the Penguins are up 1-0 after Game 1. And the Penguins have won 8 of 9 series against the Capitals throughout the history. And you can go back and look at it, and usually the Capitals are the ones that win Game 1. So maybe losing on Thursday night is the way to go. The Capitals certainly showed that when they put their mind to it, they can really take the play to the Penguins. But again, it's the mistakes and the missed opportunities. The Capitals had 83 shot attempts. A lot of them just barely missed the net. They had some chances in front on rebounds, and they just didn't finish it. And they didn't get their power play on the ice at all in this one. And Coach Trotz certainly was not happy that the Penguins got 2 power plays and the Capitals got none. Given the way the game went with the Capitals over 80 shot attempts, he was definitely not a fan of the 2 penalties they called on the Capitals, given everything else they let go.
I thought the third man in on the brawl at the end of the second period would have netted the Caps a power play. On Kuznetsov, after Williams sprayed Fleury, and there was a flurry down in the corner at the end of the second period, they both came up roughing Shattenkirk and Wilson. I find it fascinating that Kuznetsov was on the ground brawling and didn't even go to the box.
Yeah, I don't know what the O'Halloran and Pollock.
Dude, you can't let that go in the first game of the series. Not in this series. That's like letting Terrell Suggs and Ben Roethlisberger push each other around. You can't let that go without a flag. I mean, that has to get called.
Yeah, and I mean, I actually talked to after the game. I exchanged texts with someone works for another team in the league, and he's like, the problem with the NHL right now is nobody knows what a penalty is anymore on the ice.
It's whatever you can get away with, right? I mean, literally, right? That's
nobody knows what a penalty is. I mean, that whole scrum started, Williams sprays Fleury, but Bonino cross-checks Williams right in the head, and then all mayhem breaks loose. And, okay, if you're going to let that go, then how do you let the penalty on Niskanen. How do you call slashing on Niskanen there? You go back, you watch a replay on that. Fleury stops the first shot, but the puck's loose, and Niskanen puts a stick in there, trying to jab the rebound.
Dude, there was a lot of loose pucks, right? I mean, especially in the third period in front of Fleury. It's incredible, and it really speaks to, somebody would wake up today and say, well, the Capitals lost game one. They always lose. It's not that they always lose. They always lose, and there's 14 loose pucks in front of the net, and the damn thing never goes in. I mean, and they usually lose a 3-2 game when they outplay the other team, and that happened again. I mean, this is, for dudes like you and me that have been around this a long time, they did not get their ass kicked on Thursday night, right? I mean, for periods they did and for small stretches, but they were the better team most of the night, and they lost at home. And, that's what makes it that much harder to take, because that's one more game they're going to have to outplay the Penguins in Pittsburgh and get the series back now at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I go back to that pre-scout blog I did on the Penguins out at WNST.net. I hope everyone checked it out. But the Capitals have lost their last 6 games in Pittsburgh at the Igloo 2 there. They have not won since December of 2015. So that's why this one on Thursday night stings, because now you're down 1-0 in the series. You've given up home ice advantage. You didn't win a game there all last year in the playoffs. You didn't win a game in the regular season this year there, and you got beat pretty bad the game before the playoffs up there in 2016. So this one stings because they played well. They dominated, again, 83-41 in shot attempts. They were all over them. They couldn't bury their chances, and the Penguins were very opportunistic, and the Capitals gave them a little bit of gifts on the first 2 goals to Crosby, and then they had a structure breakdown. You just can't give up that stretch pass, because the Penguins love to do that. They're going to try to go with that long pass from the D to the forward and try and get the late guy coming down the slot, and the Capitals broke down there. Shattenkirk and Orpik. And that forward line out there, they didn't play that well. They got too spread out. So you got to eliminate those mistakes. And Game 2 almost becomes a must-win for the Caps. I know it's a long series, but if they lose Game 2, then it could be a really short series. So they're going to have to play a lot of what like they did on Thursday night, but bury their chances. And then they got to just be better structured. They can't have these big letdowns. Their period starts have not been good in these playoffs. So we go back to the Toronto series. They have not started well at the beginning of periods.
They did in Toronto. They were flying both of those nights, and they got the early goals, and then they went to sleep for a period and a half. And, they have sleepwalked through, a significant portion of this postseason, right? I mean, and when they've been out playing the opposition, unlike in the regular season where that amounts to 3 and 4 goals in a period, where they had that going on throughout the regular season, not just this year but last year too. Boy, in April, it just doesn't work that way. Those scrums, the loose pucks, the opportunities, the throw the puck on the net and hope for the best. They've been immune to that in April somehow, some way for 40 years or so, Ed.
Yeah, they just have to. They've done a better job this year of getting to the front of the net, and they had some chances. Ovechkin was in front, Oshie, those guys, Johansson, Williams, and the second goal that the Capitals scored to tie it up was a thing of beauty. Again, Justin Williams in front, creating all kinds of havoc, opens up a lane for Niskanen to slide it across to Kuznetsov for an empty net. So they just have to keep going to the net, and they just got to find a way to get to those pucks. They're all, like you said, Fleury was bouncing a lot of pucks into the slot. So they have to figure out a way to get the guys there at the right time to get those pucks, because the Penguins are going to pack it in. The Capitals are faster with their forwards against the Penguins D, just like the Penguins forwards are incredibly fast. One of the things I didn't like that the Capitals did in some stretches, especially in the third period, early in the third period, was they were trying to bring the puck in through the middle of the ice. And I felt like they had their most success when they carried it wide, because the Penguins D is not really fast. There's no Chris Letang. So they got 6 guys back there who are solid, but they're not outstanding skaters. I feel like if the Capitals can take the puck wide and then look for the guys coming late and find a way to get pucks and bodies to the net actually after they get it in, they'll be more successful. I felt like there were just a little too many turnovers there in the third period. And obviously, early on in the game, the turnovers really killed them. You can't have those offensive blue line turnovers. You've got to get the pucks deep and just wear that defense out.
Ed Frankovic can be reached. Ed at WNST.net. He's also Ed Frankovic out on Twitter on game night. We will be convening together. I was on the couch. Ed, it was freaky. I've been doing this a long time, and certainly in the social media era, almost a decade now. We've been in sort of live, real time at night. A long, long way from the old Nasty Nestor days where I would just sit around from 2 until 6 and take phone calls and go home and pack it in. I mean, boy, second period, third period, draft going on, Alabama players, quarterbacks going off the board, wide receivers, there's a run on it, and the Capitals are behind, and then they're catching up, and then they get the 4-on-4, and then, right when the nitty-gritty happened, the draft was going on, and, wears me out, man. Dude, that was an intense Thursday night. I can't imagine having been down at the hockey rink trying to monitor the football draft, which is important to me. It only happens once a year. I don't ever want – it's like a Super Bowl. You don't ever want to take a pass on the draft. The draft's a big deal, and there were so many things that happened on the night of the draft. It was it still hasn't settled in that the Caps have lost game one, honestly, because the draft and Marlon Humphrey and the guys they passed over and all of the flurry of activity, it was an exciting evening. I mean, that 9 to 10:30, hour and a half was really, really wacky from a dude who does this for a living and loves it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, the Capitals were playing their best hockey of the game in that stretch, and you really felt like they were going to break through, and they just couldn't do it. And then, Pittsburgh gets that goal. So the Capitals have to focus on the things they did right in game one and try not to make those mistakes in game two. And if they continue to get those shot attempts and just get to those rebounds, I think they'll get it by Marc-Andre Fleury. But, he's certainly confident. He's a confident goalie right now, and they have to find a way to get him off his game and get him moving a bit because he's not as big as Murray. So there's more potential holes there, but you got to get him moving and moving around. And towards your night with the clicker, I had a couple radio guys from stations down in the district there, yapping about the draft with their headphones on while the game's going on. I'm dialed in on the hockey game. I got the WNST text about, the corner from Alabama.
That's correct.
So tell me
Marlon
about
Humphrey.
him.
The interesting thing, and Luke and I are going to talk about this at length, and you can go hear it in the Bayou Toyota Audio Vault as well. He was a guy that was allegedly going to be off the board, right? And the Gary and Conley kid had the issue in Cleveland with the rape allegations, and apparently, and Adam Schefter reported this, the Ravens gave Conley a lie detector test earlier this week that he passed. So it's very clear the Ravens were targeting a cornerback, and the wide receiver run before they got there and the quarterback run really dropped a number of guys. And I know Reuben Foster was one of those guys that was rumored, and he had some a physical issue on him that a lot of teams red flagged, and obviously he held up to the 31st pick. The 49ers took him at the bottom of the first round, but when they got on the board, Charles Harris was on the board. Nobody expected that. O.J. Howard, who I talked about at length the last month as a riser on the board, Alabama kid, the tight end, Ozzie left him on the board. Jonathan Allen, another kid that was in many top fives and top eights, Ozzie left him on the board. So Ozzie had a chance, not just between the cornerback from USC or the big tackle from Wisconsin or Missouri and the linebacker Charles Harris, who a lot of people liked, but he had 3 Alabama kids he was looking at, and he picked the one he liked the most, and I think they picked the need position. And Ed, I've been talking hockey with you for 6 months, but going back to November and December, the way they lost those games was when Jimmy Smith went down and they did not have a corner. And this has been a theme going back to the New England loss a couple of years ago, and the theme of the Bengals wide receivers and the Steelers wide receivers and the Patriots. And, those teams you're going to need to beat in your division. And then if you get to January, they have wide receivers and unique cornerbacks, and it's a passing league. And I'm okay with it because Ozzie's okay with it. And, they didn't stutter. I mean, they handed in the card. They had no problem with it. And we're going to welcome Marlon Humphrey in here and hope for the best, Ed. And I'm going to hope for the best on Saturday, too.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're going up against Antonio Brown and A.J. Green, you have to have somebody to match him. And much like the Capitals for years, they could never find that guy to play with Ovechkin and Backstrom, and they went out and got a T.J. Oshie. They did it in the trade. They had Forsberg and they dealt him, which ultimately helped get McVie fired. But the Ravens go out and get this corner, and they certainly need it. They've been trying to patchwork that corner position for several years, and I know they want to get a pass rush, but you still got to have somebody who can cover some of these guys because Brown and Green, those are two of the best in the league.
Got to have somebody to cover Crosby and that little Bonino character on Saturday night. Caps lose 3-2 in regulation in the opener. Ed Frankovic was on the scene while we were all doing our WNST draft thing here. If you want to get the draft picks all weekend long, get on the WNST text service. This is all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Of course, you got that one. I don't know. Let's just see what time we sent that one out on third. 10:08. Ravens select Marlon Humphrey with 16th overall pick. Don't forget, you get $100 off all the Ravens road trips this week. We've been circulating that. I would certainly, if you have friends at work, friends in your office, family members who love to go on the road with the Ravens, we'd love for you to pass that along, even if you're not going to make it to London, Green Bay, Minnesota, or Nashville. But you can always email me, nasty@WNST.net. It's also under the trips tab up on the website. I am Nestor. I'm out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We got the Wizards in a knockout game on Friday night. We got the Orioles with 3 games against the Yankees all weekend. You'll be hearing some Yankees previews around here, as well as Luke and I talking all things draft as we head into the weekend. The Ravens on the clock for 7 more picks at this point, so we'll see how that turns out over the weekend. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.